Welcome back to Season 2 of the 5-Star Council podcast, the 5-Star Counselor Bootcamp. Over the next 6 weeks, in 12 episodes, I'm taking you step by step through my service framework. Every episode focuses on one key aspect of service, not only tackling common misconceptions about that aspect, but also giving you clear takeaways and tactical exercises for you to do on your own. This will help you develop service in your firm so that it works for you, your employees, and your clients. I'll help you build the firm clients rave about because you, your clients, and your employees are happier, leading to more referrals, repeat business, and 5-star reviews. Let's get started. Welcome back to the 5-Star Council Bootcamp. We've been talking about service and what that actually means. Last time, we talked about how people are one of the 3 components of your service. This time, we're talking about delivery standards. When you think about standards, when you think about service, how do you know if you've actually done a good job? What we want is a measuring stick. Yes, we've hired the right people so that they can do the job for us, but we need to know, and more importantly, they need to know if they've done a good job. How are they going to know if they got it right? One of the common misconceptions we need to address is, well, people should just know what they're doing, and then they should know if they're doing a good job based on that. Another version of this problem is what I've heard from a lot of others. If I don't tell you anything is wrong, then you're doing just fine. The problem with doing this is it leaves a lot open to interpretation rather than giving concrete guidance on what a good product is, instead of just saying, well, if I didn't make any marks, then it's fine. So what we want to think about is, how do we know if we've done a good job? But before we know if there is a good job, we need to know what those times and places of being evaluated are going to be. This is a concept called touchpoints. Where and when are your clients interacting with you so that you know what to expect and what the standard should be for each of those interactions? Things to think about are your website, client meetings, email, and sending draft documents. What would a good job look like? In a lot of cases, these are things where, even though we have similar practices, we're all practicing attorneys if you're listening to this podcast, the standards may overlap more than we might think, even for different practices. In other cases, they may be totally different. The key, though, is to know what your standards are for your practice. The thing to keep in mind with all of your delivery standards are, these are the way that you'll know how you've done a good job and if you've done a good job. Alternatively, think about it as the adjectives and adverbs that you're going to use to describe the delivery of your physical and technical components. Delivery is how we describe the service we're providing. The touch points are where we're providing it. And then the standard is how we know if that delivery actually met the standard. So if we think of having adjectives such as clean, fast, and easy for the delivery of our product, well, what does that mean? How clean is a clean office? Does it merely mean that there are no crumbs and no paper on the floor? Or does it mean that everything is in its place? If a client is coming in to sign documents, how should that office be prepared? When I think about what I do for when clients come in to sign, the standard is all documents will be prepared at least the day before. That means we're not rushing to get things printed the day of. Everything should be in one manila folder. That manila folder should have the date and time of the execution of those documents so we can quickly look at the outside without getting into information about the client in those documents. And all the documents should be paper clipped using plastic paper clips, preferably color-coded to know who is signing. Generically, we use blue paper clips for when a man is signing, pink paper clips for when a woman is signing. And by using 2 different color paper clips, it allows us to highlight which documents need to be signed by both parties. If it's got 1 paper clip, it just needs to be signed by 1 person. If it's got 2 paper clips, then both parties are signing it. This standard is a quiet communication between everyone who works in my firm that something's been done correctly. If it's in there, if it's been paper clipped appropriately, and they're in order, it helps me go through those documents faster before the clients come in. So as we look at our touch points and how we want our service to be delivered, we want to be able to quantify that delivery so we can measure whether or not it's been done correctly. Thinking about email, How long does it take to respond to an email? How long should it take to respond to an email? There's not a right or a wrong answer, but making sure you know what that answer is and then communicating that standard to all of your employees so they know. If the standard is that every email gets at least a prompt response of no more than 24 hours, that's something people know, and it still gives them the flexibility to receive an email on Monday and not hit send on a response until Tuesday. It also doesn't put your staff in a position where they're not going to be able to get out an overwhelming response in too short of a time. What if a client emails and asks 15 different questions? If your email standard is that it has to be responded to in under 2 hours, how is that email actually going to go out? Will you have to drop what you were doing for another client to effectively respond to that client? It doesn't give your staff the flexibility to deal with things as they need to be done. It's putting a false sense of pressure on your staff that will draw them away from other things that may be more important. What if that staff member is in a meeting that's going to take them 2 hours? They won't be able to respond. Of course, this is just an example, but the point is to make sure that you're setting standards that are going to be reasonable for you and your staff. While we want to make sure that we're pushing what we deliver to make it easy for everybody around us, we also don't want to make sure that we're not bogging things down so much that our employees can't get the work done in an effective way. As another example of a touch point, think about your website. What's the point of having that website? For most attorneys, it's a chance for you to advertise your services to your potential clients. It's rare that your clients, it's rare that your current clients are going back to your website. So with that in mind, if the point is to advertise who you are and what you do to potential clients to get them to come in the door, how can you make that easy? How can you make sure that you've got standards in place that ensure that that website is doing what it needs to? For a website, then, we're probably thinking about having standards regarding readability, freedom from typographical errors, and making sure that it actually addresses questions that clients, not other attorneys, will have. So while there may be some specific items that can be measured in terms of readability and freedom from errors, when we think about does this address a potential client's questions, we'll need to think about how does this actually work for them? Does each sentence help convince a good fit client to move forward with us while also convincing a bad fit client to go somewhere else? As a final touch point, think about sending draft documents to clients, whether they're draft estate planning documents, draft motions, or just a memo outlining some findings. What should it look like, and how should that be structured for your clients? Obviously, things like spell checking and grammatical checks with tools built in on Word should be part of this. They're tools that you already have available and they should not be missed when you're reviewing it. You may consider other standards so that you know that you've actually reviewed a document within your own process. At my firm, we use asterisks to convey information that is going to be provided by a client or an option. But those asterisks don't get sent to clients. It's one of the final checks we do to make sure that we've addressed the open questions we need. And if we haven't got an answer for that, it highlights where we do need an answer. So, doing a search for an asterisk, it's a quick, simple standard saying that no client gets a document with an asterisk. By making sure that there are no asterisks, we've addressed everything that we should have gotten from the client before we send it to them. It's also something that's easy and simple. It's not a specialized character, it's on every keyboard. We haven't gone out of our way to make sure that we have a process that is going to be misunderstood by everyone. We want to make sure that it works for everyone and that we can do it quickly to make sure that the standard's been hit. When we think about other standards, you will have to find some way of measuring it. Thinking about how long does it take to get initial draft documents to a client. Everybody's going to have their own standard on this. Maybe it's a day from that initial meeting, maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month. But even knowing how have we done on our work? Should it be a week? Should it be 2 weeks? Being able to not only know what that answer is and then measure particular clients against that standard so that you know if you're getting the job done. Even if the client is fine with you it taking you 2 months to get them drafts, You should know how long it should take an average client to get that done so that you can start focusing on improving that delivery time and then ultimately setting a better standard. So, to pull everything together, remember that the delivery component is all about describing how your service is delivered. How are you delivering the physical and technical components of your business? Diving deeper, we want to know what the touch points are for your practice. Where do your clients interact with your firm? Whether in a digital space like a website or an email, or a physical space like a meeting in your office. Once you know what those touch points are, figuring out what the specific standards are so that you and your staff know if they've delivered correctly. Have we delivered fast enough? Have we delivered something that was ready to go for the client, or is it not yet ready? Pulling these things together will help you know what is your service standard so that you know when you've met it. So, as your closing exercise, what adjectives do you want to use to describe the delivery of your physical and technical components? Again, thinking about things like clean, fast, and easy are a good place to start. After you've decided on the qualitative descriptions, think about how you'll quantify an appropriate delivery. How long? How much? How many? Or how few? Being able to set a standard that anyone, knowing what the standard is, can look at a document or other piece of work and say if they did it or not. By pulling these pieces together, you and your staff will be able to know if you're actually delivering correctly for your clients. Thanks so much for listening. You can find more info on us and get your free white paper on client service at 5starcouncil.com. You can get in touch with me at john@5starcouncil.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found and leave us a review wherever you can.